Faith in the trenches. After Uhud, the hypocrites and some Jews were celebrating the Muslims' loss. They saw this setback as proof that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and Islam were just a temporary reality in Medina. Abdullah ibn Ubay, the leader of the hypocrites, reached out to the Quraysh to re-establish his alliance with them. Many tribes in Arabia saw their opportunity to build strong ties with the Quraysh and other hostile tribes. The Quraysh still wanted to get rid of Islam. All they had to do was attack Medina. There was a man named Huyay, one of the tribal heads of the expelled Jews, who was on a mission to get revenge. He knew that he couldn't fight the Muslims alone, so he hatched a scheme to get some other Arab tribes together and unite in one force to completely rid Arabia of Islam. He talked to some of the Arab tribes in the north and gathered some people to go visit Mecca. And there they hashed out a plan with the Quraysh. Huyay promised them that he would support them and he would give them the last Jewish tribe of Medina, Al-Qurayza. Huyay promised the tribe of Ghatafan that he would give them a year's worth of produce from the gardens of Medina if they were only able to defeat the Muslims. When the time came to march, the Confederates had gathered a massive army of over 10,000 warriors looking to extinguish Islam from Arabia. This huge army set forward to Medina. When the word of this got to the Prophet, the Muslims were definitely struck with panic. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gathered the believers in the mosque and they consulted about the best plan of action. In this situation, leaving the city to try to fight them in the battlefield was definitely out of the question. They had not the means or the size to face such a formidable army. So Salman, the Persian companion, he introduced to the believers the Persian military strategy of digging a trench, because there were only a few miles that were needed in order to barricade off the entrance of this army. So they began digging the trench. In just 6 days, they completed the entire section just before the enemy was to arrive. While they were digging, they found a large rock, and all of the men that came to try to break it, they could not put even a crack into it. So they came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. He mentioned God's name and he struck the rock, and once it cracked open and a light shot out. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed out in hope, I believe that it is the keys of Syria will be given to us. He struck it again and it cracked again, opening larger, and the light flashed. And then the Prophet declared, I believe we will be given the keys to Yemen. And with the third strike, the boulder crumbled into pieces and the light flashed out, and the Prophet said, we will be given the keys to the palaces of the Persian Empire. This miraculous event with seemingly unbelievable prophecies definitely lifted the hopes of the Muslims. During this time, they started to face a food shortage. One of the Prophet's companions, Jabir, he invited the Prophet to eat. Jabir's family had some barley and a small goat. Jabir told his wife to cook the dough and prepare the meat. So he whispered to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, knowing the large amount of hungry believers, that please bring over just a group of your most beloved companions to have dinner. So the Prophet stood up on a rock and announced to all of the men that Jabir has food for us all to eat. I'm inviting everybody to dinner at Jabir's house. Jabir was quite confused and his wife was very much concerned. How are we going to feed hundreds of men with just one goat and some bread? The Prophet prayed on the pot, and everyone took their food. And as people took plates of food, at the end everybody ate their full, and there was still food left in the pot. This miracle also is going to increase the sense of trust the believers have in the Prophet and his Lord who is supporting them. The trench was complete, and now they are finding themselves under siege. All Muslim men were assigned for specific places to deal with the possible threats of them entering the city. Muslims were cold, hungry, and tired. But primarily due to the trench, the believers held their ground. They did not allow this massive army to enter Medina. After 20 days of being under siege, a man from the tribe of Ghatafan named Nu'aym ibn Mas'ud came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He snuck in and said, my tribe does not know that I have left them, and I wanted you to know that I'm here to embrace Islam. The Prophet encouraged Nu'aym to make a plot to try to sow seeds of discord among the Confederates. So Nu'aym went to the Jewish tribes and the Arab tribes and the Quraysh, sowing seeds of confusion and doubt about what is going on and what's going to happen, and how some were ready to come back with the Prophet and how others were going to turn on the others. And the Prophet made a very powerful prayer that night. O God, revealer of the book, swift in account, give us victory over these Confederates. Overwhelm them and shake the ground under them. And that night would become the worst night that those people had ever seen. An extremely cold, severely windy, stormy night. In the middle of the night, it hit them with gusts that would throw their tents completely upside down. So they all became confused and chaos erupted. By the next day, they had all pulled out. The Quran captured the scene. O you who believe, remember the favor of God upon you. When a large army came to besiege you, ready to attack, we sent them a fierce desert sandstorm and other forces that you could not see, for God is watching everything you do. In chapter 33, verse 9, the chapter of the Quran about the Confederates. The tide would forever turn and change in Arabia, and God answered the prayers of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and all of the companions were filled with joy as the believers now had the upper hand in Arabia. This is what we call divine intervention, without doubt.